Recording button. Cool. All right. Welcome everyone to the March 2026 Power BI for Enviro's session. For those people that are some of the more regular faces, great to see you again. Thanks for jumping on. And for those people that are new, welcome. Our group, as you can see on the screen, is really about sharing case studies largely in Power BI with an environmental data set or a water-based data set flavor. So today, I'll get into the intro of the main session soon. We're very, very privileged and lucky to have Lakshmi dialing in all the way from Atlanta, and she'll be talking about her bird migration Power BI report and a bit of the journey she went on in creating this one. So just a couple of housekeeping. So just as a courtesy to Lakshmi today, please mute yourself when she's giving the presentation. If you have any questions as we go, I've spoken to Lakshmi, she's happy to sort of take questions throughout the session, but feel free to type them in the chat. If it's something that we can answer, we might just reply. Otherwise, we'll find opportunities throughout the session to have a bit of a break, and Lakshmi can go into a little bit more detail about sort of, if it's Power BI techniques or just a general question. For those people, I guess, unfamiliar, this session is being recorded, so it'll be shared afterwards via the YouTube channels and the blog as well. This is a new photo, Daniel, as you see, you got your little Christmas hat from last year, so yeah, things like that. Just as an acknowledgement of country, so I'd just like to acknowledge the Bibbulmun people as the traditional owners of the land from which I'm dialing in here in Perth, Western Australia. Pay my respects to the Whadjuk people, their elders, both past and present. And also extend the acknowledgement to the lands that you're dialing in from, whether it be from within Australia, which is the majority of our community, or internationally as well, the Indigenous peoples from the lands that you're dialing in from. This is a view looking at Perth CBD, about 5 k's from home, part of my running route. So yeah. Those people, again, relatively new to the group, sponsored by Discovery Eye. That's our company. We largely focus on environmental data sets, visualizing this largely in Power BI. We also offer Power BI training, report design, end-to-end Power BI reporting, a graphic design element if you need sort of infographics, animations, and environmental analytics in general. So if you're looking to work in this area and you want some support or collaboration, feel free to reach out to us. And probably my most exciting slide that I've presented today, not necessarily Lakshmi, is I'd like to also introduce Discovery Eye's newest member, baby Emma, who joined Alice and I, obviously born on 14th of January 2026. So she's nearly 2 months old. She's doing well. That's why from a LinkedIn and Twitter perspective, we've had a relatively easy start to the year and mostly just focusing on introducing Emma to our family, but just wanted to share that now, and people have been like, well, where's the group been? So we've sort of been on a little bit of a hiatus recently for obvious reasons. But without further ado, why everyone has dialed in today is we're looking at tracking bird migration through data visualization with our guest presenter, Lakshmi, based out of Atlanta. So Lakshmi, I'll just introduce the topic and then yourself as well, and then I'll pass it over to you. Sure. So this session will take attendees through the journey of turning raw migration data into an engaging, easy to understand Power BI report designed with end users in mind. So Lakshmi will take us through what the initial data set looks like, which is available via Kaggle in the link in the bottom left, and also in the meetup event if you wanted to go in and have a look at it yourself. And her focus is really on clarity, thoughtful design, and usability for environmental professionals, which is people on the call as well. So Lakshmi will take us through the final report, share some of these design decisions that are behind each visual, and explain, a key component which is sometimes overlooked in our report design, accessibility, and how we can bring this into our reports for people that are less able and need a little bit of help interpreting the data and gathering insights from that. So she'll go into some practical tips and tricks. And in case you haven't seen some of her work, she's one of the global best people in terms of report design, UI, UX, and this front end report design focus in mind. So I think we're all going to learn a lot from this. So in terms of Lakshmi, our guest presenter, she's a Microsoft MVP for the data platform and a certified Power BI data analyst, currently working in the Institutional Effectiveness Department at Missouri University of Science and Tech. So her passion is really about creating innovative Power Power BI reports that not only make the data pop, but also provide actionable insights. She's a finalist in the most recent Microsoft Power BI Data Viz World Championships 2025. And I believe you're also a finalist in the 2026.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yes. Congratulations. That's great. And all the best. And she's showcasing her ability to combine both technical expertise with storytelling. An engaging speaker frequently speaks about things Power BI, and I'm sure she'll provide links to other conferences and other sessions that she's presenting on in the near future. But without further ado, Lakshmi, yeah, really happy to have you on the call. Thanks very much for taking the time, especially given it's 8 p.m. in your world. So we always appreciate those outside of hours sessions. And I'll stop sharing now if you want to take on, and we're really looking forward to the session. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me quickly share my screen.
Cool, that's come through.
Perfect. Let's get started. So, hi everyone. Welcome to my session, tracking bird migration through data visualization. It's my very first time presenting like a environment related report, and today is going to be very less theory, more showing, because I am a believer that dashboards and reports are something that should be experienced and not just described. Uh, Being said, quick introduction. I mean, he did a great job. Christian did a great job introducing me. Quick introduction about me, Lakshmi. I am the finalist in the 2025 and 2026 Power BI Data with World Championship. And on a professional level, I'm a data analyst at Missouri University of Science and Technology. So higher ed is my specialty. And on a personal note, I'm a dog mom. So that's my dog, Casper. Love going on adventures. Both of us are foodies. And I'm a huge advocate of diversity and inclusion. Something I really like to do is make dashboards less frustrating and more fun. And let's get started with the session. So, first question, why bird migration? So, the honest answer is I did not wake up one morning and decide to track bird migration, right? This was actually a data set provided for a Power BI contest run by Microsoft. So, I was like, okay, let me just go ahead and try it. But once I exploded, I realized that it was a perfect visualization challenge because you could get in a beautiful story out of it and learn about it too. So I did not have much knowledge about bird migration, but I think once I started playing around with the data set that was given to me, I did learn quite a few things about bird migration. And so once I looked at the data set, right, there were a few things that I noticed, like
Sorry,
quick thing.
Lakshmi. It's
Yep.
just stopped sharing screen, so I'm not sure if it was supposed to still be sharing.
Oh, I am so sorry.
It's all good.
That's weird.
Yeah, I think it's back now. Cool. I just made a button. Perfect. Sorry.
Perfect.
To interrupt your
Yeah,
flow.
no
Thank
worries.
you.
So once I looked into the data set, there are a few things that I noticed immediately. Simple things like the migration patterns are very seasonal. It is not like a linear change or a linear trend. Different species showed different and behave differently. Geographical context also changed the interpretation of the data that I had. And something that I realized that just raw numbers alone would not tell me the story. Trends are really important. So these are a couple of things that I explored while I was looking into the data set. Quickly, let's move on to the game plan. We're going to see the data set. We're going to have a quick look at the final report. And then the report has 4 pages. I'm going to break down each page. I'll possibly explain the design decisions behind every element on the report there. And I will also like a quick, I would say, bonus. I would also show what I would improve today if I had to redo my reports. And obviously everything using Power BI. Let's quickly get started with the data set. So the data set is an open data set, which you will find on Kaggle. The links, I can drop it just after the session. So this data set was picked from Kaggle, and it's a completely synthetically generated data set. There are 10,000 records in it. Each record represents a single bird, which is tagged with a tracking device. And then I had attributes like flight distance, what was the speed, where did it start from, where did it end, what were the weather conditions like, and then finally, what was the migration outcome. So this is pretty much about the data set. First thing, when I always look into the data set, right, the first question I always ask is, what question does this data want to answer? Like, what am I trying to find out? And that's how I proceed with all of my visuals and my reporting. Quick Since the data set was provided to us by Kaggle, I did not really do a lot of data cleaning because pretty much everything was clean. This is a very, very simple data model that I have. Probably let's just quickly look into the data set in the Power BI report. So three tables. The first table is just the bird migration data table that was given to me. And when I looked into it, there was no cleaning required. I think there were just a couple of missing rows and missing columns. We were just told to remove those, so we just removed it. So not going to talk much about the data modeling here, but you can see that you have a bird ID, and then I have what kind of species it is. We're kind of focusing on a couple of species, not all the birds, and then what regions, what habitats, what are the weather conditions like, why do they migrate, latitudes, longitudes, and a lot of other stuff like rest stops. They're migrating from one place to other. How many rest stops do they stop at? And at the end, you would find something called a migration outcome, which is either like, oh, I can find it here. So, outcome, uh, which is just result. Oh, we'll just see when we're looking into the report. So just one final column which says whether it was a successful migration or whether it was a failure. Very, very simple data set. I enhanced it a little bit by adding two more data sets. Now, obviously, I did not have a separate date table for this because I did not have any date columns here, but I did have months. In order to sort out the months, I just created a table here called sort month. And like I said, just to make it a little more interesting, I wanted to add icons to it. So I just have another table. Let me just quickly open it. Just species and a couple of URLs of the icons. So that's pretty much it. Very, very simple data set. Quickly moving back to the presentation. First, what we're going to do is do a quick walkthrough of the report. What I did, what is my report about? So I have my report embedded in PowerPoint to make things easier for me. And let's proceed. So my style of reporting always has the first page as a landing page. So it's the landing page that I created. The reason I always go with a landing page is I do not know who my end user is because it was a contest, right? I don't know if the person already knows about migration or if the person is very new to bird migration. So the landing page kind of helps me set the standards. This is what I'm going to talk about. So you have my title, The Science of Bird Migration. And then I have 2 to 3 lines about what this report. So you can see, like it says that this report explores the fascinating world of bird migration and so on. So this subtitle helps me tell the end user what the report is about. And then, since I said I have 3 more pages, I have buttons, migration overview, species insight, success versus failure. One more reason why I like landing pages is I visit this report and I'm just interested to know whether the migrations were successful or failure. I can directly click on this particular page and go about it. I do not have to look into or scan every page. Pretty much know that this is the particular page I'm looking at. So this is a quick reason of why I use landing pages. And then obviously to make it beautiful, I had added a beautiful image of a bird right there. Okay, let's proceed with the first page. So whenever I create reports, I think it's just habit. My first page is always like a summary page or an overview page, mainly focused at people who have no time, who just want to know what are the numbers. So once you hit on migration overview, I have the first page wherein it's just about when, where, and why. That's it. Pretty simple, straightforward. So you will see like currently there are no species selected because I'm giving you like an overall view. Remember I told you the data set has 10,000 birds. So that pretty much is very clear here. The total migratory birds I'm talking about is 10,000. Couple of other contexts like how many total species are there, what is the successful, how many successful migrations over there, how many fail. And then the next visual, simple visual, just talks about when do birds migrate. We will look into this particular visual in detail in the further slides. After I explain when, I have 2 to 3 lines where I'm kind of explaining what I see here, and everything you see here is dynamic. So you see the first line here, it says the highest number of birds begin their migration in March, marking the peak season, while September see the fewest take off. Now, if I select a particular species right there, you will see the values change. So It's dynamic. So just wanted to show you that the values here are dynamic, not static. Then I have a quick fact. The reason I added this is when I looked into the data set, I saw there were values missing for June, July, August, and December. When I did a quick research, found out what the reason might be. I found a couple of reasons and I put them in here. Like I said, I did not know who my end user was. So pretty much gives you sort of a textual context of what's happening in this visual. Then simple map and table combination to show where are the birds headed from. And then, oh my God, what happened? And then a quick visual which says, why do the birds migrate? Basically just has the migration reasons here. We will look into each of this in detail in the further slides. My next page now, after I came to know the overview, now I want to know about each of the species, kind of know, I would say, like how many, which months, which species is migrating more, or I want to know which of the species had the most number of failed migration. This is where I would go. So this page is clearly just talking about all the migrator species that I have. So I have used a simple new card visual right here. So uh, mentioning all the species I have, what are the counts of the species in there, added these icons just to make it a little more attractive and also to reduce the cognitive overload. Imagine if I had no icons there, the report is just going to be numbers and text. Just by adding these little icons, it kind of people who get too overwhelmed with text, it makes them feel happy. That's the reason I put these small icons. Then comes up, I'm going to talk about the migration seasons across the species. So this is a small heat map created using a table visual, could be done using a matrix visual as well. Then I'm going to talk about, after I finish knowing which seasons affect the migration, next we go on to do like a species comparison where I am seeing the distance versus duration. I've used a dual axis line chart here. So you would see like there are eagles and hawks. So if you take a look at eagles and hawks, you would see that they cover long distances in shorter time frames, right? And then there are other birds like geese and warblers. They take longer. And once you look into the data, you will see these people take longer because they stop to rest a lot. So these were like little, I would say, observations that I came along the way. And that's the reason I chose this particular visual. Now, once I met all the migrators, I need to know what was the outcome. How many were successful? How many were failure? Uh, what are some environmental factors that affect those? So my next page is going to talk about success versus failure. So first, telling just quick visuals where I'm just asking questions. So you see how the titles of each visual here are questions. So I don't have to interpret or I don't have to take extra time to interpret what's going on the visual, right? Direct question, the direct title says, are some months better to start migration? And then I have a subtitle which says, what am I talking about? Success and failure trends across migration months. So this little touch wherein I add questions as titles and then subtitles kind of helps me guide the users intentionally. So the first report, again, it's a heat map, quickly tells that if you see from January to March, most of the migrations are successful, but kind of when it goes towards the end of the year, the migrations start to fail. Then I'm going to talk about the predator sightings. How do they affect the migrations, right? If there are less than five predators, that's fine. The migrations are kind of successful. But once the predator counts is more than five, you would see that values have failed. A quick thing to note here is I did not have a specific column called predator sightings less than five or more. I just had the count. So the predator sightings were one, two, three, four, five. I had to create a calculated column or group to make sure that I do not overwhelm the end user by saying Predator 1, successful failure. And the Predator sightings went up to, I think, 10 or 15. Now imagine a big table with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's going to overwhelm the user. So I simply cut down it to half. Less than 5 is successful, 5 or more is failure. And then this particular rectangle on the rightmost side is impact of environmental factors, like you have wind speed, humidity, and pressure. I am sure there are more factors that affect too. Since the data set just had these three factors, I made sure that I put those out there. And then remember, I was talking about rest stops. I also did a quick analysis to see if more rest stops were good or bad. And this is what I found out. I found out that birds who took lesser rest stops had a successful rate. And then that simply means that excessive stops. And then I did a quick read through on why does it happen. And then I found out if birds stop excessively, it kind of changes their schedule, causes fatigue and unfavorable conditions as well. So this was something that I learned while I was creating this report. Then quick, I would say, comparison. I want to see the species. I want to see which was the species that failed miserably, which one was successful. Quick heat map to quickly show that warblers were more successful or hawks and eagles failed a lot. So quick information about that. And it's pretty much about a quick run through of these 3-page report that I made. Now what I'm going to do is do a breakdown of each page. For example, the first page I already mentioned. Why this page worked is one, clear titles and subtitles. This is what my my report is about. This is what a big detailed explanation of what my report is about. Something that also works is these buttons. These buttons have clear state variations. In the sense, you see how when I hover over those, the background color changes, right? So when you have these little UI UX feature of wherein you are adding these special extra effects that adds to the user experience, right? It is now very clear that when I hover over it, oh, okay, it's a button, I am supposed to interact with it. So play around with the state variations in buttons. If possible, if time permits, I will also show you how you could do it simply in Power BI. Next, we're going to talk about the second page. The second page was about migration overview. So this is what we saw. Now, like I told you, this page was the only question this page wanted to answer is when, from where, and why, right? So everything you will find it right here. Things that really work out in this particular page is one, I have a clear slicer on the top. If the end user is interested to just focus on hawks, they can start the exploratory analysis just by clicking hawk. Everything is dynamic, everything changes, right? So that's really important. Next, you see how I have a strong KPI block. There's a big bold number 10,000. So that's kind of a anchor number. Now I know that I'm working with a data set of 10,000 species, 10,000 birds. Then I have detailed breakdown of total species, successful and failure. And then you see how I have a visual separation with the background box. So the extra context numbers have like a background box, and that kind of gives a clear visual separation. You see how there's a proper hierarchy, there's no clutter, and the numbers are very readable. Talking about accessibility right here, you see how the numbers are very legible, very clear. That's something that works for this KPI block. Next is the monthly migration chart. So here, what do you see is it's a vertical bar chart, very clean, very clear design. There are no unnecessary elements, no unnecessary grid lines going here and there. Proper data labels for each bar so that the end user does not have to guess what number is this? Is this more or is this less? Now, this data set had numbers almost the same. That's why the bar looks almost the same. So it was really important for me to add in those data labels. And you will see there are gaps in June to August and then December, right? So when you plot a graph, time-based visual in Power BI, by default, Power BI is not going to show you the months which have no value, right? It will not show you June to August or December because there's no value. There's a special setting on right click, and when you hit show no data, I will show it to you right after this. There's the special setting that you need to enable to make sure even the blank values are visible. So I made sure that's visible too. And I think these empty months are powerful because there's a subtle storytelling hidden in there as well. Next, talking about this map and region table combination. I really like this combination because the map here, it gives you like a spatial information, and the table just next to it gives you precise numbers, right? And then below the table, you see there's this textual insight. So it kind of reinforces the takeaway from the map as well as the table. So I would say this particular section is a great example of UX layering. In the sense, I have a visual, I have clear numeric values of the visual along with the written insight. So this particular combination is very powerful when the end user, I would say, is a beginner. And that's why I think this particular combination works really well. Next, I have a section called Why Do Birds Migrate? Simple horizontal bar chart. And horizontal why? Because I feel horizontal bars are really good when you have long labels. You see how I have avoid predators, climate change. So once you have long labels, I really prefer going the horizontal way. You see how I have values, the data labels clearly mentioned as well. Something that I've done here is added a filter on the right corner, and you see how it's placed logically. In the sense, it's very clear to me. Let me just go. Yeah, it's very clear that this particular filter is only going to affect this particular visual. So just want to highlight how important this rectangular shape, or I like to call it a visual container, is. Imagine I did not have this particular rectangle. I could just imagine that this slicer is going to change everything and anything on my page, right? So just by adding this extra shape or a visual container, I was able to tell the end user this particular slicer is just going to affect this particular visual. So this is one more quick tip. When you're trying to group things or when you're trying to relate things together, it's always suggested to use a visual container or contain them together so that the users do not get confused. So that was about it. Next, you see these textual box, the text insights that I've added. I think these are like commentary sections and they're very, very strong. You are basically guiding the user. You're not just throwing charts at the user. You're also telling the user, okay, this is what the visual is. This is what you've learned out of it. And I personally feel like environment professionals or even my higher ed professionals, they appreciate when there is some sort of narrative content. Doesn't have to be direct on the screen. It could even be like icons wherein I hover over an icon or extra tooltips. So these narrative context adds real value. Now, if I had to redo this page, what would I do? Right? I mean, for me, like when I created this page, I was like, this is perfect. I'm not going to change anything. But then I later realized that there are some things that I want to change. The first thing is text density. You see how I feel like this is slightly heavy on the text. I mean, a lot of text there, very slight visuals. So what I would do is this particular section, instead of having a huge paragraph there, maybe just add in like bullets, just two simple bullet points, or add in some icons, or make it like a button. On clicking the button, the user can read about it. So that's something that I would do. Next, you see that monthly chart right here, right? Although I love it that I am making sure that I show the users June to August and December are the months where my birds do not really migrate. But uh, there are some users that might be confused. They might assume that, oh, maybe data is missing from the data set, right? So what I think is I should have added some placeholders like this, or like the dotted bars, or make sure I give an annotation or explanation to the end user why there is a gap in the visual. Next, talking about the color contrast, I think this is very neat, very clean. Everything is brown. But I kind of feel that this is too much brown. I am not highlighting or focusing on a particular place. So if I had to redo this particular section, I would do it something like this, wherein my highest bird, the reason which is driving the highest bird migration would be in the dark brown, and all the other colors are going to be lighter. And similarly here, I'm going to just highlight or focus on the month which has more migration. So I think when I have to redo this is the first thing that I would do. So that's pretty much about page 2. Any questions so far, or can I move to page 3? Let me quickly look into the chat.
I guess just quickly in regards to questions, and that's fantastic. Description of like the design, the visuals, the focus, Lakshmi, and then what you would improve. So thank you very much. One question from Veronica was about the numbers in the dashboard. Are they one-time figures or they can be refreshed and they're dynamic numbers? They're all dynamic, is that correct, based on the slices and selecting?
Yes. So the numbers on the visuals will keep changing. but the data set is not going to refresh. It's just a simple open data source.
Yep. And the other question is, and maybe this is one for later on, someone's asked for like a demonstration of how to build the bookmark and the page buttons. So maybe if we have time later on, that could be a great approach. Yep.
Sure. Yes, sure. Absolutely. Perfect.
Excellent.
Okay. Moving on to the next slide. So the next page was about the species insight, where we just meet the migrators, right? So if you look into this particular page, the first thing that catches your attention is the species card layout. So you see how each card is equally width. Once everything is very consistent and similar, it helps you do a structured comparison. Now imagine I had icons, like I had successful and failed here, and then I just flip it to failed and successful. That's not a good practice. So it's very important you make sure everything is consistent. I have no idea where this goose icon flew away, but anyway, let's proceed. So something very important, consistency. Next, the icons that I told you, the icons I think just adds a little personality to it. That's a good part about this particular section. And you see the typography. So something I really want to focus on is keeping a consistent typography. You see how my numbers on the top, the main anchor numbers are bold or of the same size. When you move to the reference labels, you have successful and failed in a slightly, they're not bold, but then I have the numbers that are bold. So having this consistent typography also helps to keep the report neat and clean. Next, I'm going to talk about the heat map. I think this is an excellent use of color intensity. You see all the months aligned properly. It's very easy to visually scan across the species. I'm talking about crane, just go horizontal and know your inside. Or if I'm talking about the month Feb, just go vertical and know my inside. So I think that's a great use of the color intensity. And I also think that it makes the seasonality immediately visible. In the sense, if I'm talking about warbler, I can clearly see the March is highlighted in a darker color. So I think that works too. Next, the distance versus duration. It's a dual axis chart, very thoughtful, I feel like. And I think the line differentiation here, you see how the average flight distance is a solid line, and then average flight time is like a dotted line. This line differentiation also uh, reduces the cognitive overload, in the sense I kind of know what to compare or what to focus on. Next, you see how there are data labels directly. Even if there are no data labels, I have tooltips. So when you hover over those, you can see those numbers. Next, as I said, the narratives. Whenever you see these narratives, I think there's a great way of adding a textual context. Now, if I had to redo this particular page, which I feel is like perfect, I mean, just for a beginner who's looking at this report, it's good. But quick things that I would like to redo. This particular visual is good, but what I would like to do is convert the legends into series labels. In the sense, you see here how I have legends on the top, but here I have series labels. I feel like it makes it more clear and easy to understand that, okay, this particular color is talking about average flight time and this particular color is talking about average flight distance. Now, there's a quick drawback of using series labels is if you're going to have lots of lines, the series label will get messy. And sometimes one weird thing that Power BI does is if there's going to be any overlap, in this case, it's not going to, but if there is a case, Power BI just randomly drops out one of the series label. So it's very important that before you take a decision like this, play around with the data and see what your data is like. So yeah, that was one change I would do. And another change that I would do is the heat map here is perfect, gives me a lot of information, but I would like to add a heat map scale on the top, because someone can just ask me if the darker color is it better, or am I just trying to tell that it's the higher count, right? I mean, the if you add this scale legend on the top, it would basically clarify what are you trying to interpret. So I think just by adding a little scale legend on the top would make it more insightful. So it's pretty much about page number 3. Moving on to page number 4, and then I can talk about, I could take up questions, show you tips and tricks that I've used here. The page number 4 is we're going to talk about the last page, which It's basically success versus failure. Just trying to figure out what helps a migration or what hurts it. Now, I feel like this page is a place where the curiosity became like I turned into a investigation mode. It turned into an investigation mode, trying to find out why did some migrations fail, right? Now, things that work here is one, you see how the layouts are sectioned, very clear clusters there. I know, okay, this is talking about month. This particular cluster is talking about predators. This particular section is talking about my environmental factors and so on. So that's one thing that really makes this particular page very neat and clean. Next is this particular heat map, a success versus failure heat map. Very powerful. You can instantly see January to March is successful, and then the November is a darker failure. The pattern recognition is immediate with this heat map. And this is done just by using the conditional formatting features that are available for the matrix or table visual. Next, talking about the predator impact table. So you see how it's very clean, focused, very simple, less than five and more. So quick, I would say a division makes the insight very obvious. There's no, I don't need to create a separate chart for this. Very, very obvious to see the colors as well. Next, we're going to talk about the rest stop. The rest stop bar chart, I think, is a very strong choice because, like I said, since the labels are longer, I went for a horizontal layout. The legends are very clear. The colors are marked. The data labels are there. I can do a direct comparison in the sense if I'm talking about rest stops less than 10, do a direct comparison how many failed, how many were successful. I don't need a table for it. This visual pretty much tells me everything. Also, if I want to quickly compare the failures of less than 5 rest stops and more than 10, I can quickly do it right here because I have clear data labels in there as well. So, yep. And then you see the insight just below the table, it gives you a direct connection of why this is happening. So I think that works as well. Moving on, a species versus outcome heat map. I think excellent comparative visualization where I'm comparing what's happening for the crane species, what is happening for the stock, who's being more successful and who is being more failed. The rows are clearly aligned. There's a clear contrast between the high failures and success. And I think that works as well. Moving on to the environment factors, very minimal and do not complicate too many correlations, but let's move on to the other slide and I will tell you what I would like to change about it. Like I was talking about the environment factors section, I think this is pretty much doesn't give me a proper differentiation. That's because of the values. Since the values are like 30.37 and 30.35, I kind of now feel that going for a visual like this didn't really make sense. I should have just used a table instead or try to add some variance bars or delta labels, small arrow indicators showing which is more, which is less. And I kind of feel like it's slightly static compared to the rest of the page, right? I mean, I don't see any difference in the failure and success. So that's one thing that I would change. Also, I think page density of this particular page is way busier than the first two that I showed. And the visual that I just pointed out, I'm sorry, this particular species versus migration outcome could also be ignored because my second page, which was about the last page, which was about species insight, already had this information. So I think I could have avoided this particular section and that would have given me more white space. Or maybe I should have split this particular page into two or use a drill through. So I think these are some of the things that I would do if I have to redo this particular page. Now, quickly collating everything that I spoke about, I want to talk about what made this report. I think one of the clean reports that you might have seen is one, there's a strong visual hierarchy across all the pages, right? You know, every visual has its own visual containers. Everything is aligned, neat, and clear. Next, there's a good balance of visuals. There's a table visual, there's a heat map, there's a chart, there's a summary, textual content as well. Excuse me. Then consistent color system. You see how the entire report just had 2 to 3 colors, very minimalistic, very consistent. All my important numbers were in brown. All the other text were in black. Next, narrative guidance throughout. Like I said, where I work, higher education, people really like when there is narrative context, which is dynamic as well. I click on something, the dynamic content should be related to that particular click that I've made. So that narrative guidance throughout the entire report helps too. Next, it's not very feature heavy in the sense Power BI has a lot of features, right? Drill through, you can do a drill down, you can use bookmarks, you can do a lot of navigations, but I kind of kept it very minimal and focused it on the design more. Design in the sense I have 4 pages. These are the things that I'm going to talk about, and I have textual context below it. So very, very design focused. Quickly talking about accessibility before I take in questions. The first thing, when you are creating a Power BI report, I would say to get started with accessibility, there are 3 to 4 things you can get started with. The first thing is color contrast. Whenever you choose a background and a foreground, just open any color contrast checker that you can find on Google. So this is a quick color contrast where you can put in your foreground value, you can put in your background value. It does some calculation on the back end and it gives you a contrast ratio. As a good practice, it's always better to choose foregrounds and backgrounds which have a ratio more than 5:1. So that's like a very, very accessible point. But here you see how it's 9.23:1, which is great. So color contrast is one of the most important things. Next comes the text clarity. Like I said, there was a consistent typography. There's just one font family used throughout entire report. I think it's called Segoy UI, and then I kind of used bold and the semi-bold version of it. So that's very important as well. Next, the title and subtitle combination. A lot of us do not really use the subtitle, but I really feel that subtitles are a great way of adding more extra information. So having a title and subtitle is really a good accessibility feature in the sense the user does not have to guess what's happening in that particular visual. Next, alt text is called alternative text. I will quickly show you how you can add those in Power BI. And then we have tab order. Let's quickly move on to Power BI before I show you how you could do those. So let's talk about this page. Remember, I was talking about alternative text. What is alternative text? So say people, a lot of people use screen readers, people who are not able to click on, or they just want a quick narration of the entire report. Now, how do screen readers work is you need to feed in alternative text. The way you do that in Power BI is just click on any visual, go to the formatting settings, under properties, you will find something called alt text. You can just type in whatever you want. Like I could just type in KPI card to show total words, right? So every visual here, you will see that there is an alternative text. So when the screen reader is reading, it's going to read this out. It's going to tell me that this particular visual, okay, monthly breakdown of total birds on the move. Quick. Now, the way I do it to save time is once you have a decided subtitle, you can always copy paste the subtitle in the alternative text because the subtitles that I've used here are descriptive. Again, it varies scenarios, but the entire report has descriptive subtitles, and then it was very easy for me to just copy paste it. Another quick tip right here is you can have your subtitles as measures. Throw in your measure using FX here, throw in the same measure in the subtitles using FX. Pretty much saves you a lot of time too. And then if you want to copy that subtitle to another report, you can just do it. Copy the particular measure. So that's a quick tip right there. So that's about the alternative text. Next thing was tab order. What is tab order? Is, a lot of people, we use tab to navigate in your web pages, right? So here, if I click on tab, you see how my first visual gets highlighted, then I have my page navigation, then I have my slicers, and then you see there's a particular flow of the tab order that is being followed, right? When you create reports in Power BI, the order gets messed up. So before you publish your reports, quick suggestion is quickly head on to your selection pane. You will see something called a layer order. Layer order is basically how you're layering your visuals. And then you have something called tab order. So this is where you have to go, make your changes, make sure that your tab order is perfect. Once you set your tab order, so when you just click on each thing, you will see that that particular visual gets highlighted. So once you set your tab order, the quick way to check is just click on the page, click on your tab, and you will be able to see if your tab order is perfect. And one important reason of why you have to set your tab orders is when you click on tab orders, the screen recorder will also read out the alternative text in the order you press. Now imagine your first visual was when do birds prefer to migrate, and then suddenly my tab order tells about this particular text where it says that majority of the migratory birds originate from South America. I am asking about months, and then I have a insight about the origin, which is South America, right? So you see how there's a disconnect. In order to avoid those, it's really important to make sure that you set your tab orders. And yeah, that's pretty much about the accessibility feature. Quickly going to my slide, we're almost at the end of the slide. Really want to take some questions. Is quick practical tips that you could steal from what I just showed you is one, show an outcome early. In the sense, you see how I told you my first page is about an overview. I am throwing the facts at the user. This is the outcome. You see, this many birds were studied. These were the successful, these were the failed migrations. So show outcome early. And by showing outcome early, I don't really mean just having an overview page. Even if you could show the outcome in the title, that makes sense. For example, the title wherein I had questions, do the number of rest stops affect migration, right? Even if you show that as a title, it makes more sense. It kind of tells your user that you're going to quickly find out about the rest stops. So that's important. Next, design for the questions and not for the data. In the sense, once you have environmental data, like when I was given this environmental data, I was a little overwhelmed because I had no idea. This was my first time creating an environmental related report. And then I realized that I should not focus on the data, because once I start creating visuals based on my data, I'm going to have hundreds of visuals, right? You can do lots of analysis because I had around 20 to 30 columns. Then I realized that it's better if I can design for questions, the questions that you just saw on the screen. How does the wind speed affect my migration? What are the months that migrations are more successful? So when I started asking questions, it was easy for me to design as well. Next, make sure that I just focus on one insight per visual. I did not try to put in reference lines, average lines, median lines. I just focus on one particular insight per visual. Was it the success? Was the migration successful? Was the migration failed? Say if there are less than 5 rest stops, what is my outcome? If it is more than 5 rest stops, what is the outcome? So just giving one insight per visual is a great way to get started. Next, white space. Like I was telling you, just having 3 to 4 visuals on a page also is very, very functional. Very easy. Makes, I mean, helps prevent the users from getting overwhelmed. In order to do that, white space is going to be your best friend. Next is very, very suggested is test with your non-Power BI users. Once I created something like this, I just showed my husband and asked him, did you understand what's happening? Although he had no idea about my bird migration, he was able to find out that, okay, these are the reasons what this happened. These are the species and this is the outcome. So when you test with non-Power BI users, it actually helps you refine the UI UX principle of your report. Quick final thought here is what I understood from playing around with the environment data is the data will not create the understanding, right? The design does. In the sense, the migration patterns already exist. The data already exists. It's the design and visualization which kind of removes the friction between data and action. So that's very important. The data will not create understanding. The way you mold the data or the way you visualize it is going to affect it. And with that being said, thank you for flying along on this migration journey. And if there's, I would say, one thing that I hope you take away is this, the data was always there. The insight depended on how you shaped it, how you designed it. And we all know environmental data is very complex, right? But when you use thoughtful visual decisions like spacing, hierarchy, grouping, that what turns like a regular data into insights, and it's a story. And to be honest, this entire report, I just felt that the birds did the hard work. We just had to visualize it, right? So, with that being said, thank you so much for attending, and I hope you learned something out of it. And I think I am open to questions now.
Amazing. Thank you, Lakshmi. That was fantastic. And yeah, you're getting lots of reactions and stuff from people on the call, especially like you said, you're that making sure you're not getting overwhelmed with the data and approaching something that you don't work within Power BI every single day can be a little bit. So I think you really stepped it through. And yeah, a lot of the comments that have come through in the chat, there was a little bit of commentary on design from some people, but design's very subjective, but most of the responses are all fantastic. And I think, yeah, we really, really appreciate your time in the way that you sort of presented that. There were a few questions. So do you think it's worth how quickly do you think you could do a quick demo of a bookmark button approach, just what was asked earlier?
Yes. So quick magic here is you're talking about these buttons, right?
I think so, yeah. Just how you set
Yeah.
them up and changing the state maybe quickly.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the first thing here is earlier we had to use bookmarks for navigating between pages, but now Power BI has an inbuilt page navigator. The way you find out is you go to insert, go to buttons, and then you will find navigators and click on page navigators. What it does is it will bring out all the pages in your report. So here you see how I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. It brought out all the 5 pages. In order to customize this to get something like this, just go to the format pane and play around with the formattings. In pages, there's a place where you can switch on and switch off your pages. For example, I don't want to show these pages. That's it. Single click. Next, to get these effects on hovering, you have these background changes. You go to style and then you see these states, right? So go to default, set your state. Go to hover in the fill. I'm going to change it to say black for now and text is white. That's it. Now, when I hover, do you see how I have black background and white text? I'll quickly, instead of black, let me just show pink maybe so that I can differentiate. So playing around with this state is very important. That's how you could get this beautiful page navigator. So the page navigation is no bookmarks. It's directly using a page navigator, which is an inbuilt feature of Power BI.
awesome. That's
Perfect.
really good. And for the person that asked that question, I'm sure that that's a really good intro to how to go about that. Another one, maybe there's a question about, can you share more info on alternative text from a beginner perspective? I thought you covered it pretty well, but maybe if you just want to do just a quick recap about how it works. Yeah.
Sure. So alternative text is a text that the screen reader reads out loud. So what you have to do is just quick description of what the visual is about. For example, this particular visual, you see how this visual is about the total migratory birds, or let's just talk about this. It's about months. So you just have to write like a one-liner on what this is about. It's just a monthly breakdown of total birds on the move. So just imagine you had no visual in front of you. There's someone reading out the report to you. Would you be able to understand? Now, if I tell you that it's a monthly breakdown of births, are you able to understand monthly breakdown? So I have months on one side and then I have a breakdown of the numbers. So that's pretty much about the alternative text.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you. And hopefully that helps people. And the text boxes that you've used in the report, some
Yes.
have dynamic elements and some are just
Yes.
static. Is that correct? Yeah, cool.
Yes. Yes. So the static elements are the facts. So, I mean, obviously, facts cannot change, right? But everything
Yep.
else is dynamic. For example, here you see the highest number of births. So, when I talk about highest or lowest, or I'm talking about the origin, like starting from where and then like what's the highest the where the majority birds migrate to where. So when you have these changes, even here, when you see that the changes, the reasons why birds migrate, when I click on different species, the reasons change. If the reasons change, the text here needs to be dynamic. And it's pretty very, very easy to do that. It's a text box. You just go to value and just type in what you want to show. Power BI does perfectly bring out your value, or just create a separate measure and put in the measure here. You will be able to create a dynamic text box like this.
Yeah. And when you're looking at this in the Power BI workbook, as Lakshmi's showing at the moment, you can see the underlined text is the dynamic
Yes.
elements, but once it's
Yes.
published up on the service, that all just looks like normal text going through and you can't see the difference. So yeah, that's great. I love it
Right.
when that improvement came along for the standard text boxes. Shri just had a question as well. It's the last one in the chat. How do you prioritize insights when EDA raises more questions than answers? Do you understand what that means? Or Shri, do you want to maybe just come off mute and just phrase your question? Yeah. If you're still there, Shri.
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you, Lakshmi. That was a great presentation, actually. And so, I'm a junior data analyst now. So when I start with analyzing a wide data set, so I get up when doing EDA, I find more questions than answers. So when we are presenting it, how can I narrow it down, and what are the main insights to present? That was my question, actually.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I was at the same stage when I saw the data set, right? When you see the data set here, you see how many columns are there. I think more than 20, 30 columns. And I was at the same stage. I did like an quick exploratory data analysis, and I was like, oh my God, there are so many analytics I could find out of it. But the best way I would say is breaking them down. Like you see how here I've broken down as first I'm giving you an overview, then I'm focusing only on the species, and then I'm focusing only on the outcomes. And when I'm talking about outcomes, it's obviously positive or negative. And then I'm talking about the reasons for positive and negative. So I think the best, whenever you feel that you are getting more insights out of a visual, or you're getting more questions out of the particular visual, better to break them down and group them logically. Like you see how the outcomes were grouped along with the factors that affected the outcomes. The species, everything related to the species was grouped into one page. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Perfect.
Awesome. That's great. And this maybe just the last one, Lakshmi, just given the time. Just a question, are the top buttons also page navigation, or are they sort of individual buttons to navigate between?
So these are page navigators. The
Yeah.
reason they look like this is again just played with the formatting. So I think in the shape, I've used a parallelogram here and then just changed my slant and then kind of made it fit in right here so that it looks like what do I
Yeah,
say?
fits nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, and this the same. So basically I just copy pasted this, but the shape here is a rectangle, the shape there is just parallelogram. That's
Awesome.
same. Yep.
Perfect. No, that's great. Look, I'm sure there's, lots more questions, and I've got questions, but like just in the interest of time and knowing it's pretty late, I might just steal the screen share back just for the last few minutes, and then we'll close the recording, and then yeah, we'll just finish up the session. So thank you very much again. That was a fantastic session. Just I think everyone, oh, not these guys. I think everyone just values that thought process that you've sort of gone through and explained to us and how you've sort of broken this down. But just to close out on the session for this, the March 2026 Power BI for Enviros, like I said at the start, if you want to go and rewatch different elements of Lakshmi's session today, yeah, feel free to go into the blog and the YouTube, and that'll be made available hopefully early next week. We've got a few up our sleeve for later in the year, but if anyone is interested in sharing their own environmental data analytics or Power BI sort of story, a bit like how Lakshmi did today, whether you want to go relatively simple in terms of your brainstorming thoughts in terms of your report, or focus on a particular technique or something that you find valuable within some of the latest Power BI updates, feel free to reach out. It's always just good hearing these stories, these case studies with a bit of an environmental flavor. And lastly, I'd just like to thank everyone that dialed in. Yeah, it's fantastic to have like the robust discussion about visuals and design, and to see it all put together in like one of the best sort of reports that I've seen, Lakshmi, to be honest. And there's a reason I think that you got awarded so high in terms of the finalists for this one, and I'm sure you'll go well in the other competition. All the best at I think it's FabCon, or whenever you have to do your final competition and report. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and insights, and thanks everyone for dialing in. With that, I'll just stop the recording, and then yeah, if there are any questions, Lakshmi, I don't know, I know it's quite late in your world. Are you happy to just stay on for 5 in case people have questions?